we try to always start on time, and since people were still streaming in, we started out a few minutes late, but we were going to honor our end time. So this might sound like a big chore, but what I'd like to do is start off by saying, introducing myself quickly, and then asking people here to introduce themselves. No bio, no long story, but just who you are, where you live. If you don't live in the neighborhood, just say maybe what city department you represent, or there's people here from Metro Transit, just say, why you're invested in Railroad Island. So I'm going to start and tell you that I'm Amy Brendmoen. I'm the City Council member representing Ward 5. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but thank you for being here, and I'm going to start at this end with my colleague.
Hi, Dan Bosch from St. Paul City Council, and I represent part of Railroad Island buses.
Hi, I'm Kim O'Brien, and I'm Legislative Aide to Council Member Brendmoen.
I'm Mike Grillish. I'm with Friends of Sweet Hollow.
My name is Brad Griffith, and I'm a neighborhood builder.
Leslie McMurray, Executive Director of the District 5 Planning Council.
I like that, neighborhood builder, Brad. Yeah, I'm Ed Davis. I live in a little further east, in the more east side, and I'm also a neighborhood builder. Work with e-democracy, the forums, neighborhood forums.
Rebecca, 530 Minnehaha.
Richard Blazer, 711 Bedford.
I'm Charlie Dodge, Lieutenant for Transit.
Lee Bennett, Metro Transit Bus Operations.
I'm Erin Guffensberger. I work with Mary.
I'm Michelle Square. This is my husband, Cameron Square. Metro Transit Bus Operations.
My name is Joyce Seegers. I live close to Sweet Hollow, down on Johnson Street. And I've been here 20 years, starts back in Hampshire.
Hi, I'm Liz O'Clair, and I'm from Metro Transit as well.
My name's Dave, and I'm a 50-plus year resident of the neighborhood.
Jeff Londino, Railroad Island resident.
Shirley Thompson, Railroad Island resident, all my life, 73 years.
Kathy Kiefer, I own NPO Specialties and work across the street, been here since April.
Debbie Kiefer, we just moved from across the street next door, 556.
Jack Deaver, married to her.
Gwen Peterson, City of St. Paul, Manager of Recreation Services.
Kathy Corum, Deputy Director, St. Paul Parks and Recreation.
Hello, I'm Rob Thomas. I'm one of the three assistant chiefs. I'm in charge of the patrol division.
Officer Chris Byrne, I'm the Railroad Island Beat Officer. Robert Humphrey, I'm here as a candidate for the Minnesota State Senate.
Nancy Holmes, I work for St. Paul Mayor Crystal.
Patty Lammers, District 5 Planning Council.
Hi, Commander Jill McCray, East District Commander. Leanna Schaff, Fire Special Supervisor. Make sure good.
Linda Arneson, I'm a resident of Railroad Island 576P, and I'm currently chair of the Railroad Island Task Force.
Joe Generali, Department of Safety and Inspection.
Tom Diamond, Democrat, State Senate candidate.
Yeah, I'm a quick resident of Railroad Island since 88, and president of the District 5 Council and past chair of the Railroad Island Task Force.
I am Mary Christopher. I've been living in Railroad Island for about 20 years now.
Donald Wall, the St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health.
I'm Angie Tweed from Railroad Island North Street. We know something about my department. I asked them to answer questions about that. I'm Joy Wilson. I'm a resident of Railroad Island.
I'm Troy Troyan, I'm also a resident. Welcome.
John Sanders, I work in Council Member Brendmoen's office.
Al Carlson, Director of Housing with the Department of Planning.
Linda Coleman, and welcome to my home. I'm American Community Services Union and Family Services Manager.
side. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. It is great to hear where we're all coming from here today. I mentioned earlier that I'm the representative from Ward 5 in the St. Paul City Council. And that means that I represent the residents of Railroad Island, the east side, the near east side to Edgerton Street into the highway, North End, and most of Como, and St. Paul in general. And last year I ran a city council campaign as a real outsider. I wasn't involved in the city at all, and I kind of came into this, into the race with a campaign platform of new ideas and fresh perspectives and big energy, but also said the whole time that I really valued institutional knowledge, and I think that great ideas come from everywhere, and so I really value conversations where people come up with solutions and that we all get together and make plans to make a brighter future. About halfway through the campaign in June, the census numbers came in and they redistricted, and Ward 5 added Railroad Island. So prior to that, it had been in Dave Thune's ward, Ward 2, and he also represents downtown and the west side. And prior to that, Dan Bostrom represented most of Railroad Island, correct? So it's really bounced around from council member to council member. And when I found out we added Railroad Island, I jumped in my car and said, "Where's Railroad Island? I need to know more about it." And I have to say, if any of you are familiar with Murph Dawkins, she's my children's piano teacher, so she's been telling me, for years about this great place, Railroad Island, and I'm like, oh. So I got in my car and drove over here, and instantly I was charmed. Loved the historic homes, the interesting streetscapes, the great businesses. Loved this place. But I also could see with my own eyes that there was a certain element of forgottenness. There were empty and vacant homes. There was more trash than I'm used to seeing in Como, and I was concerned about that and wondered how this gem so close to downtown St. Paul had kind of fallen off the grid. But I thought, that there was definitely some great and amazing strengths to this neighborhood. After I took office, I had a meeting with Merrick Services, and they shared their a community needs analysis with me, and it was shocking. When they talked to me, they mentioned that in Railroad Island versus the rest of St. Paul, that there was a much higher level of poverty in Railroad Island, higher unemployment than the rest of St. Paul, less education than the rest of St. Paul, and lower home ownership than St. Paul at large. The vacant and foreclosed home numbers were very high. Absentee landlords, lots of them. And they had lost a fully programmed neighborhood rec center when Wilder went down to really short hours. So those were concerns to me, and also just that this neighborhood had been bounced around to many council members. I also was given the Railroad Island small area plan, and it was really an amazing thing to read. It looks like it was originally written in 1994 and revised in 2007. This is a great document, which means we don't have to do this, which is awesome. Going through this process is really painful, but I read through it, and I was heartened to see that we've actually accomplished some of these things, and Kim is going to talk about some real accomplishments we've made towards moving forward with this plan. But there's also a few things that have languished, and so part of the reason that we're gathered here today is to talk about what we need to do moving forward to keep this moving, and to also figure out what's missing from this plan so that we're hitting all of the high notes and the important things going forward. Anyway, and like everywhere, our city services are stretched. I know the economy still isn't fully rebounded. Our community is hurt by the high unemployment rate. People have still been found jobs. Our property values are falling. And people are tired. I know I've talked to many of you guys who are like, gosh, I've been chugging away so long and I'm just tired. I'm tired and I don't feel like change is happening fast enough. And I get it. But like I said, I ran thinking I'm new, I've got fresh ideas and fresh energies, and if I can plug into you and your great ideas and your institutional knowledge and your passion for the community, maybe we can move, advance the ball. So, I did want to say that and I mentioned this to several of you individually, in the 7 months that I've been in office now, I've heard from a lot of you about the challenges that you've seen, the increase in crime, some large kids and problems that we're having with fights, some drug problems. And we've seen it ourselves. You know, I come down here for community office hours once a month and spend 2 hours sitting in the community. So one thing that we don't need to do today is spend a lot of time convincing each other that there's challenges that we need to face head on. We know that. So we'll talk about it, but I don't think we're going to preach to the choir. We're here because we care and we know that there's problems that we can tackle. But let's see. So today what we're doing is we're convening to share information. Even when we walked in the door, Kim and I learned that there's some great things going on with Save Our Sons in the community that we weren't aware of before we walked in the door. Well, great. We know that, and we're going to share it with you so that we all know that information, and hopefully we'll walk out of here with a ton more information about what everyone's already working on. But also identify where there's holes and things that we need more services from the city and from the social service organizations and other community services that can help us here. And my hope is that we're going to leave tonight feeling energized and supported and feeling that we have a new or renewed sense of commitment to Railroad Island. And so I kind of want you to think as we move forward on our agenda about how you're going to commit to this area, how you're going to commit to your neighborhood, or how you're going to commit with your resources and your power to make this place even better. And so I'm going to kick it off by telling you that as your council member, I commit to being responsive to all constituents. I will represent the neighborhood's wishes on policy matters. I commit to seeking resources and opportunities for this community, and I will participate in ongoing communications. And I will keep the spotlight on Railroad Island for the duration of my term. And I want you to think. So I want you to think about what as we're talking tonight, what's your commitment? Because at the end of tonight, I'm going to ask everybody to, we'll say what our commitments are, but then we're going to sign this map, like the Magna Carta, and make a commitment to this community tonight before we walk out the door. So be thinking about that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim, who's going to introduce a little bit about the city services that we have and some of the progress that I've indicated that we've made on the small area plan. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kim O'Brien, work for Council Member Brendmoen. Like Amy, I was immediately charmed and interested in this awesome neighborhood. I also got a chance to get to know many of the residents here who called me with their concerns and talk to them on the phone a lot. And every time I come here, I feel a sense of hope and I feel a sense of obligation. And I also commit to serving this community, to answering your questions, and to helping to be a liaison between you all and the city government. So in the interest of time, we wanted to try to establish a baseline of things that are already going on, city initiatives that are already going on in this neighborhood, so that we can focus our conversations on how to add to those issues and how to strengthen those issues and what holes are missing. So you guys may have picked up this document. It's a little list of current initiatives at Railroad Island, and admittedly, it's only a draft. So this is not a comprehensive list by any means. If you guys don't have I can just pass it around. If anyone has it, I'm gonna pass it around. So, as you guys heard in the introductions, we have an amazing outpouring of support from city staff. We have representatives from the police department up to the assistant chief of patrol. We have deputy director of Parks and Recreation. We have directors of the Planning Economic Development Department. You have the ear of the city right now. You do. But I'm going to just briefly go through things that are targeted in this neighborhood from the city staff. From the St. Paul Police Department, I know that in response to recent complaints of increased crime and nuisance behavior over the summer, they have increased patrols. They placed a mobile camera unit in Wida Park following the violence and large gatherings and nuisance behavior there. This is an ongoing thing, but they host 2 community meetings every month, one in the daytime and one in the evening for residents who can't make a daytime meeting. We encourage everybody to take advantage of those meetings and to be involved with the local police department. There's also a new initiative, the IL3CP program. Commander Jill McCrae, can you wave? There she goes. There she is. Commander Jill McCrae of the Force Unit leads up this exciting new program from the St. Paul Police, which is going to be kind of doing more surveys, more community work, and she can probably answer questions about that later as well. The St. Paul Parks and Recreation Department, what's going on in this neighborhood with them is just over the summer, since Arlington Rec Center was decommissioned for the time being, they expanded the Wilder Rec Center hours. They were 6 to 8, now they're 4 to 8. So kids have a place to go between 4 and 8 p.m. They're also serving free dinners for kids. And as you may or may not know, during the day, the Wilder Rec Center is the City Academy Charter School. So this neighborhood, or Wilder, I know is a little bit outside of Railroad Island, obviously. But besides Merrick services here and Wilder Rec Center just for a few hours of the day, you know, the community is lacking a fully programmed, fully staffed recreation center that's within walking distance. Some exciting things going on near, but not in the neighborhood, is the Payne, Maryland Rec Center, which has already broken ground. Council Member Bostrom has spearheaded and led on that effort. It's going to be a great community resource. Also, there's been recent improvements to Wida Park, we understand, and a roaming recreation program for younger kids in Wida Rec, and that's on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The St. Paul Department of Safety and Inspections, and we are so happy to have Leanna Schaff here, Fire Inspector, and also Joe Yanarelli here from Vacant Buildings Program. And they do ongoing inspections of rental properties. So every renter has to go through or every owner who rents their property has to go through the C of O process. You may or may not be familiar with that, but it's a process where the city staff goes through, make sure that the house is safe and up to code, and then gives them a list of things that they have to do to bring it up to code. So they do that program. They also manage vacant buildings, and as we know, there are many of them. I don't know if Joe has a number, but there is a number somewhere. There's a lot in the Payne-Fallon neighborhood. We know that for sure. And they respond to complaints. On the table over there, there's a little bumper sticker thing. I don't know if you guys got them or not, but I'd like to pass these around. Many of you guys are familiar with the 8989 number. This is a number you can call to report any problems that you see: trash, code compliance, tall grass and weeds, graffiti, a number of things. It's a great first stop. And so I'd like you all to remember that number, because that always gets to our DSI code or whatever department is needed to get your question answered. Let's see, the Department of Planning and Economic Development. They do economic development from a business side. They do economic development from a housing side. And right now there's a really exciting program going on in the Planning and Economic Development Department. That's the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. And that program purchases and rehabilitates housing and sells them. And right now this is timely for them because Railroad Island right now has 11 buildings in the program. And that's a $2 million investment in Railroad Island going on right now. And I think it's like the breakdown is most of those units, most of those houses are single family and they're to be sold for home ownership. And then some of them are sold to or partnered with rental organizations that have specific practices and guidelines, and also in partnership with the city. So that's a really exciting program going on right now, and we even have a list of the addresses if you're curious. Yeah, or just pass it around. There's a list of addresses in this neighborhood and some before and after pictures of houses that the city has done currently as part of that program. They're also actively work with businesses on expansion and new development projects. We have Dan Bayers from the Planning and Economic, he's a planner. So he's working with, La Palma Supermercado or Yaruso's or whomever to, when they want to expand their building or they want to increase their parking and a number of other issues as well. So he's a great resource for this neighborhood, and that work is ongoing as well. There's a bunch of other stuff going on. This is an exciting time for Railroad Island. We've got 35E projects starting up soon. Right now they're replacing the Maryland Bridge, but 35E is going to be completely reconstructed over the next 3 to 5 years. That's going to be kind of a game changer in terms of traffic patterns that go right by the neighborhood. You know, we have the East 7th Street. I know that's in the small area plan, is reconstruction of that East 7th Street, and I can tell you that that work is going on now. I think the Planning Commission is hearing some proposals for the reconstruction of East 7th Street, and Council Member Brendmoen is partnering up with Council President Kathy Lantry to make sure that that road is reconstructed and that gateway from downtown into Railroad Island is what it should be. You know, the Hams Brewery, right now, the city is working with developers and businesses, and that might become, you know, like a fish farm / lettuce farm / mushroom farm / a million things. But there's some exciting development going on in the Hams Brewery as well, which is good for the neighborhood. Talk of a food co-op. It's been in the news lately. That's something that could potentially serve this neighborhood well. A grocery store within walkable distance. The Trillium Nature Park is also set to come online in the next couple of years. So as you can see, there's a lot going on right now. Not to mention, on your sheet, I even just list, I barely scratched the surface of nonprofit organizations that are doing great work in this neighborhood. From the housing side, we have Eastside Neighborhood Development Corporation and Dayton's Bluff Neighborhood Neighborhood Housing Services. They do a lot of work with homeowners and people in the neighborhood. Schools, obviously this great Merrick Community Services. And one exciting piece of news that I don't want to, hear more about it from Merrick themselves, but they right now have a capital campaign going on. As you can see, you walked in, this building's for sale. And they want to rebuild a brand new state-of-the-art recreation center down at 600 Lafayette by the tennis club. And they just received a grant from the city to start that process as well as I think it's like $1 million or something from 3M to do this work. So this is going to be, the city, Councilmember Brendmoen's office, fully behind Merrick's expansion and move. We're very excited about that, and that could be a great neighborhood amenity. So lots of exciting things going on. You have a great district council. Leslie McMurray is the director of the Payne-Phelan District Council. Great neighborhood engagement. As Councilmember Brendmoen said, there's just a lot of really committed residents here, and a lot of you are in this room, and that is truly a strength and service to the neighborhood. So, I need a drink of water. I think if there aren't any questions right now, what we could do is move into the community conversation. We're going to let you talk and stop talking for a little bit. What we'd like to do, given the amount of people that we have in the room, is, and in the interest of time, is we know that we won't scratch the surface. I think somebody emailed our office and said, 6 to 7:30 is just not nearly enough time to talk about all the things we have to talk about, and we agree. This is not meant to address all of the concerns. This is meant as a starting point. So what we think we'll do to start this conversation out, and certainly not finish it, that will be for future, but to start the conversation out is we thought we could break out into groups of 3 or 4 or 2 or whomever with your neighbors and share your experiences. Share what are your concerns right now as a homeowner, as a realtor, as a business owner. What are your concerns about Railroad Island right now as a city staff person? Participate in these conversations as well and share them with each other. And then also, what do you want? What do you want from the city? What do you want from your government? What do you want from your businesses and from your neighbors? What's ideal? Talk about your dreams for this neighborhood as well. And then we're hoping that we can do that conversation so everybody can share their thoughts with each other. And then somebody from the group will have to volunteer and kind of give us a report back. And we'll be listening, and city staff will be listening. And at that point, if you have a question that comes up as part of your group, we do have the city staff resources here to try to answer questions that we have answers to. And then if we don't have answers to them, then we'll take them back with us and we'll answer them eventually. And to that end, sooner than later, of course, not just eventually. But to that end, we have comment sheets. Some of you guys picked these up on the table here. And what we'd like you to do is, if you don't feel like there's enough time and you want to get us your feedback right now, you can either do it anonymously or put your information. It just says, do you have a story or what you'd like to share about Railroad Island? And you can drop us off before you leave, and we'll pick it up. You can mail it to us, and the mailing address is on there. You can email your comments, that's on there too. And then if you check a box right down there, then we will, I probably will, or Donna Sanders, we will call you and continue the conversation one-on-one. Because these conversations are not one. Okay, yeah, okay, great. 4 to 5 people per group. So, so if you guys want to kind of just huddle up and start talking, and we'll give us some time, and then we'll report in. So thank you, and I'll pass these out.
Sure. No problem. Yeah. West here. Where the park is and right on Railroad Island side.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you guys so much for participating in these conversations. Seem like great conversations.
Okay.
I know the one that I was part of was great, and I learned a lot. So thank you guys all for talking to each other and participating in this. I guess, did everyone kind of establish somebody from their group who can report back? Okay. Great. And then before we start, I also want to point out, I forgot to mention that my boss, Council Member Brendmoen, she had this idea early on in her campaign. And I know some people have already been to visit us at this, but this is community office hours. So to build on the fact that this conversation isn't over, and these cards, which have her contact information, and invite you to share your comments, and we'll follow up with you. If you'd like to come meet with Councilmember Brendmoen in the community, this neighborhood, there's at Wilder Rec Center. Amy is there every 4th Tuesday of the month from 4:30 to 6 p.m. No appointments needed. Come, walk up, share your concerns, share your thoughts and ideas, or your questions, and we're there every month, and also throughout the rest of the ward on a monthly basis too. So every week, Amy's in the community. You don't have to come to City Hall to come and talk to her. We really invite you and encourage you to come and talk. So I guess I'll just pass this around if you guys can pass it around. So let's start in the back. How about this back corner group? Does somebody want to come, stand up, and you have to talk real loud, it hurts your throat, but it's worth it. So I can kind of recap, and then you tell me what I missed, okay? I heard that she lives on a quiet street. She has a good relationship with her neighborhood police officers, and she loves the neighborhood. I hear that she and her group expressed concerns about certain properties, problem properties she'd like the police to go look at. And what did I miss? That was good?
I don't know if I need them to specifically go walk into the door or not, but I want them to know what the
She wants to bring them to the police's attention, and we do have police who are definitely willing to come and learn about those things.
And in our group, we talked about specific properties. You've got that sheet. Write them down. We want to know what properties that you've identified as a nuisance or trouble properties, and it doesn't mean we're going to come storm it, but it's good for us to know exactly where you're seeing trouble.
How about, let's go like down this way then. Sure. Kathy, please. Can you stand up?
Sure. Well, my biggest concern is the same addresses over and over, same landlords over and over. So I've written them all down, and hopefully guys can storm them. And another concern that we have is the rental property. I think there needs to be a cap put on the rental in this area. I understand people need affordable housing, but right now I believe there's too much rental and not enough home ownership.
It's not so much the home ownership as it is the, owner occupied. If you're gonna have a duplex, live there. Let's see you live there. I want you to live here in this neighborhood. Find out, okay, is it really that bad? Yeah.
It's not a safe neighborhood at night. And we've even heard some of our police officers refer to that. Not gonna mention you.
Did everybody hear the comments from this group? Great, thank you so much. Was there a group back there that we missed, or were you guys
Gwen's right here.
Gwen, your group? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll continue down. How about Richard and Don? Or Don just got here.
I was talking to Officer Barnes, so I didn't.
You were talking about
To
Officer
Officer
Byrne.
Burns,
Okay,
yes.
having a good conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was in this group up here, and Ed can report back.
Sure. Talk about no work being involved here. We used to have major workforce providers, Hams, 3Ms, Seeger, I think it was, later Whirlpool, that provided a good source of work, which then provided income, which made people be able to have homes, and we don't have those anymore. I guess one point that I was thinking of is what are the strategies the city is using to build these kinds of businesses back up? Because Hams isn't a corporation that's international, but it was a local, more of a local business, or regionally or regional, and so it has a different flavor. It doesn't compete with the international world. So I'm wondering if that's if the city, this is my point of view, becoming if the city could focus on economic development that's more regional and local versus international and global, because you can't be, you don't know what's happening in other countries as well, but you can't control as much. Other thing would be a residency requirement. It used to be for at least police, maybe fire. I'm guessing maybe fire at the same point. And then what that meant is that police would take their squads home, and their squad car would be sitting out front. That tended to have a huge safety windfall for the community. It also, another point made was that whether it's true in general of all police, is that they tend to be more politically active and very much influence and try to make sure that the community is strong and safe. They're involved in the politics of the community, and in a good way is sort of the impression that I was getting from that comment. Housing, the redevelopment efforts being that we wait until these homes go into foreclosure. These people are kicked out. These people could have lived here for 70 years. They've lost their home, and then we go sell it to some maybe redeveloper, who then sells it to another person, who's then made the windfall from somebody's loss, somebody's could have been saved, as opposed to somebody who, assets. The good landlords, there are good landlords here, though I understand that someone doesn't believe that. But then also the first call shouldn't be that number of 266-8989. It should be you going up to that person and actually making a connection with your neighbor. Try to solve it yourself. Oh, I understand. I understand not to vigilante, but in some cases, there are problems that can be solved if you're with some sanity in terms of don't approach someone waving a gun or a stick, but that they could be solved with some just talking. We're all people. We all eat. Community being the first tool to build and maintain your neighborhood. It's people who live here who are most likely to help make a community come back. What's the difference between now, in terms of the economic times we have now, versus say the 1930s or 40s or other times where people were probably even more dirt poor than we are now, if you want to say in some cases. And why is it that, in a sense, there seems to have at least been a perception of a better community back then? One point may be transient people, and then you were saying in terms of rentals, or someone else mentioned about rentals, the idea that maybe rentals tend to make more transient people, but more transient people tend to make a neighborhood less stable, less committed. So as soon as you are committed to a neighborhood, you feel, that's when community builds, when the connections are built, and then people, as someone said, someone said he was poor. A friend of his didn't know he was poor until someone told him he was poor. But he felt connected to the group. There's just a connection or adhesiveness to the community that it didn't matter.
Wow, that was awesome. Very well. How about, was there this group right here? What did you guys talk about?
We really talked about the lack of options for the youth in this neighborhood to do and why that hasn't been here, and what resources we could do to entertain.
would have been, I've been, so things that I did when I was a teenager, 10 years ago, kids aren't doing anymore because one day was like 5 days one time. So then we had one.
Let me make sure everyone can hear what you're saying. She's saying they talked about they're hearing about how they talked about needing options for youth, positive options for youth, and then what's her name, Michelle. Michelle was sharing that when she was growing up, there were opportunities for her to do a lot of things, and she doesn't see the kids having access to those opportunities now. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Due to funding being cut, you know, it just seems like funding is for managed use. So when Parks and Recreation was in my group, and one of the things I did is the church that we had to eat walk-in where the kids were there all day. Why not do something like that on Friday after school, and they stay till Saturday, or do it, you know, all weekend, you know.
She was saying that her church does youth lock-ins, and she was lucky enough to have Gwen from Parks and Rec participate in her group, and she suggested to Gwen that Parks and Rec try something like that, a youth lock-in, or more authentic connections with kids and spending time with kids. Is that cute?
Can you define lock-in again?
Oh, that wouldn't cost as much. I mean, I have volunteers come in that have a heart for children and, you know, watch over the children overnight, you know, have to get some snacks, movies, whatever they want to do it.
She's saying a lock-in is actually not very expensive. It doesn't need to be fancy. Simply, I'd asked what a lock-in is, and a lock-in is where kids come, they bring in their sleeping bags, they have activities and things throughout the night, and they actually spend the night. And they do this in churches and other kinds of community organizations. She thinks this wouldn't be expensive and would be a great way to connect with kids. Thank you guys.
More parents.
See, did you guys have a group back here? Jeff? You want to share?
Come on.
Hi,
I guess
Jeff.
we don't have any covenant to have it covered. It's just the same addresses over and over and over and over. And the same streets are over and over and over. We determine visibility. At least visibility is probably one of your best friends. And the more you have the visibility, the less problem you're going to have. And absentee landlords got to be accountable.
Yes.
Because it's the same property over and over and over every year. And they ship people out, ship people in, but the problems never go away. So I think they've got to be held responsible at some level instead of just talking about it. Kind of what we have.
Did everybody hear Jack okay?
You say a louder.
Thank you very much.
Our group talked about several issues, and I didn't agree to report out until the end, so if I missed something, people are going to have to correct me. Number one, we talked about housing in terms of the number of vacant houses. We talked about vacant areas down by Hopkins. We talked about Rivoli Bluff needing to be developed. So that's what we talked about in terms of housing. Secondly, we talked about youth needs in the area. I remember a time when there was a facility at White Park, when there was an ice rink at White Park. Lots of stuff going on that no longer goes on there. And we thought, you know, there is some itinerant park service that's there. They mostly serve the younger kids. And what we're really looking for, I think, is something that's going to serve the young adult kids, the teenage kids. And there really isn't anything in the neighborhood now that does that. We're hopeful that that will be incorporated into what develops when Merritt develops their new facility, and we're hopeful for that, but we still have some current concerns about that sort of thing. And we had our person from EED here tell us about some of the businesses in the area, and they are interested in expanding, which I think was a positive sign, because when businesses want to expand, that's a good thing for the neighborhood. What did I miss, Linda? You say it.
Oh.
Let me stand up.
The 7th Street, between King Avenue and 52, that bridge right there, the sidewalks are so narrow that nobody can bicycle
This was like the east side boys, and then what would happen is the Selby side boys would come and they would have conflicts, and that's what happened with the fighting. And it was causing a secondary problem, which was the bus drivers were starting to have issues with going through that route, and they were talking about closing the route that we heard from the residents tonight. And that's a secondary concern because the residents don't want to lose that route. They did say that the police were very good about coming. They encouraged them to call. And when they come and break it up, it would happen again and again and again. And they said that it finally did stop because of the persistence of the police responding. And the third concern, first, was the fighting and then the bus situation. And the third was trash. Unlimited landlords are not putting enough dumpsters out, and so there's an excessive amount of trash in the neighborhood. And they would like to see that addressed. And we talked about letting public works know that there's issues there, and the landlords just are not putting enough dumpsters out for they want residents to pick up.
I have a question or a comment. I think you're correct with not having enough dumpsters, but I think also the residents need to be educated that you can't just throw bacon trash on the outside of the dumpster. There's a lot of that.
It doesn't
Whether
help
it's
to drag.
pardon me?
It doesn't help to drag the dumpster.
Well, that too, but I mean, I see it all the time in the alleys and on the street. I live on First Street, and I've got some people that are residents that have been there for long enough that they should know, but they're not, St. Paul residents, they're different nationalities that came here or whatever, migrated to this area. Basically, they're good neighbors and everything else, but they don't realize that you can put your trash out on the curb and that's good enough. They put it out there not protected, so the cats and the dogs are digging in it, the kids are digging in it, they're dragging it around. The trash companies, they pick up anything in a can, but they won't pick up anything outside the can. I've seen trash cans, I've seen dumpsters, I've seen them heaped full, but then I've also seen just all the way around it. So I think not only the landlords, because I'm sure they're reminded by the fire inspections and everything else that they have to have trash service, they have to have a dumpster, provide this and everything else. It's the residents, they just don't think. They put it outside and that's it. They don't have to deal with it anymore. And I'm in a block where I swear I could pick up five-gallon pail every morning, 55 gallons a week of trash. The city came by last night or the night before and swept the streets. Everything was kicked up on the curb and the boulevard. Yeah, I don't know what kind of communication. I've tried to be nice to these people I talk to. They smile, yeah, and that's it. So I don't know. Maybe we need to go around and put flyers on the doors.
I can work with you on that, sir. We can help you with that.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I mean, there's First Street, they sweep that street at least once a week, and I don't know if it's Bradley or Beaumont, they can sweep that every day. 50 minutes after they're done, it will look like they've been by there for a month.
I do want to say one of the things that I committed to is trying to think of new ways to deal with that, and garbage has been brought up actually on phone calls to us. And one thing that occurred to me this last week is usually when Eureka does a new pilot project, they choose Highland or Mac Groveland to do a pilot project in, and we're going to start making recommendations like, hey, why don't we pilot that program in Railroad Island, because there's a definitive boundary and you can do a study and come in and educate the community that shows that's all walks of life. And so do a pilot project here instead of, Mac Groveland and Highland plus those neighborhoods parts. But to try to figure out ways to
I think if you get the youth in the community also, you help pick up, like sponsor programs, you have these lockout nights or lock nights, Get a group of kids together, all grab a trash bag and pick up, just like they do on the highways and stuff. It's not going to hurt them. They're going to go out, they're going to meet their neighbors, That's the thing is, my biggest thing is the youth. They're not being held responsible, and their parents aren't being held responsible.
One of the problems is that people are not recycling.
You're not gonna get people to put it in little boxes out there because they're getting rid of drain, getting the trash. You're gonna get the bumps going through, getting aluminum cans and stuff. You're gonna have to have a special container to educate these people to separate the trash and just make sure it's in a closed container.
I think it's a great idea. I think there's about 15 minutes left and we want to be respectful of your time. And so we want to make sure that we end talking about, and like I said, that these conversations aren't over with Council Member Brendmoen. You guys all have our contact information. You can write down the sheets, you can email us, you can call us, you can come to office hours, or we'll come out to you and continue these conversations. But for now, I think we want to talk about what the next steps are and talk about our commitments to this neighborhood, what we can do.
We're going to finish our group.
Oh, you're not finished.
We have the youth component here too, and talking about rec centers and trying to find a few places in town where we can stay open a little bit later, maybe at 10 o'clock. And D-Man here says we better get on Facebook because we told them that we had a few sites that were open till 9 now, but the young people don't seem to know about that. So if it works to get people to line apart for a fight, Facebook will probably work to get kids to the rec centers that are open. So Gwen and I have had parts of that conversation, and we'll continue that dialogue.
And we did the exercise with the solutions. I just wanted to make sure that the solutions that the residents suggested are mentioned. And one was definitely the Facebook, and they were talking about getting additional resources as far as rec centers or like possibly where the numeric center is going to use that facility during the duration so that they have somewhere that the kids can gather till 10 o'clock p.m. maybe to listen to music, to dance, or pool tables. And that was okay.
Kim, just briefly to address the concerns that were raised about littering and trash, District 5 just received from Ramsey County and Eureka a community power grant, which will allow us to creatively address with all residents in different languages and different ways how to solve the problems that were just mentioned. So I would love it if residents would know of specific areas where this is a problem, just come and check in with me.
The whole area.
Yeah, well,
Okay, I'm looking at the railroad tracks, the railroad tracks, the railroad tracks.
I'd still like to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. That's great.
Oh, it's education.
Yeah, we need you to be on a committee. He says no. He says no. Well,
I got the ideas, but I don't want to be on the committee.
well, you can share them even privately over the phone or over a letter or over an email. We just ask that you continue to share your ideas.
Come to the next meeting.
Okay, speaking of,
Can I address one thing?
sure, Officer Byrne.
One thing we're noticing at the police department, everybody complains about the incidents and what's going on around here, and I know what's going on also, I work the area. But when we pull up calls for service for this area, nobody's calling. The numbers of calls to the police department for issues in Railroad Island does not support what you're telling us. So we need you to call. Now I know in the past I've had you call me on the beat phone if there was an issue, and I would try to head it off so we didn't tie up dispatch with that. Now I'm telling you the other way. In order to get the squeaky wheel gets the grease, we need you to call dispatch whenever there's a nuisance problem, any crime, whatever.
Thank you so much. That's such an important point. We sat down with the police department and said, well, look at the data. Highland Park gets more calls than Railroad Island.
I think a lot of that, they probably got more Wisconsin.
But maybe over time because residents have been too frustrated to call. But we're asking today to change that, to call 911. If there's a crime, if there's even a suspicion of a crime, if you hear shots fired, even if you're like, I don't think this is an emergency, but I don't know, then call. Let the trained professionals, let the officers determine what the emergencies are. Please do that so that when we go and talk to, Chief Smith and Assistant Chief Thomaser, that the data reflects what you guys are telling us and help us allocate the resources that this neighborhood really needs. So please call. And that goes true with the 8989 number. Call the 8989 number because they track those numbers too. Call. Even if you don't need a response, just call it in. So we know, so we have a record, and we are armed with that data when it comes to addressing your problems. So with that, Councilmember Brendmoen wraps it up.
All right. Okay, so we've identified some problems, we've identified some solutions, and we've had a great conversation. It was really amazing. The minute we started, we broke into groups. There was a little hemming and hawing and a bunch of talking, so that's great. And I would love to be able to solve everything with a magic wand tonight, but I never promised that. But what I do promise is that we keep having this conversation. The good news is there is a Railroad Island Task Force. And the extra great, amazing news is that the chair, Linda, has agreed to stay on for at least 6 months in her capacity, even though she's tired, right? She's tired. And she just really kind of came here to plug into this energy and to get reinvigorated on the work that she's doing. And so we would like to ask you, in the capacity that you're willing, if it's just to feed us information that you want to get to the Railroad Island Task Force, but Kim has clipboards with a sign-up sheet, and we're asking you to make a commitment to be part of the Railroad Island Task Force. Now, you might be super excited about youth and family development. Sign up for that. There's a committee for youth and family development. You might be much more interested in economic and neighborhood development. Sign up for that committee. You might be something more about like a neighborhood watch, public safety. Sign up for that committee. Jack, I kind of want you to do that. Like, you know.
I want to see that.
But find something that interests you that you can stay involved with, because it might not be that your interest is youth and family development, but you really are excited about bringing more businesses into Railroad Island. So please find something that aligns with your interest and sign up for it and make that commitment. And we will have these sheets that you can sign up for. The actual next date of the Railroad Island Task Force, I don't believe is set yet. Is the next meeting set for the task force?
Yes.
But Linda has been thinking for this whole time of when that meeting will be, and she'll tell us, and we'll tell you. And we'll get people to move forward with that. And what we want to talk about at that next Railroad Island Task Force is, what can we start doing today? What can we start doing next month? And what can we start doing for the year and 5 years going forward? Because we need to, there's some things we need to address right now. And I heard that like the cameras in White Park helped. What other things can we do right now? What do we need to do in the longer term, and how do we make this Railroad Island Task Force? So, is that,
So I have the clipboards. I don't know, there's a clipboard and on the top it says different committee. And you know, even if you don't know what committee you're on, just put your name on one of those. We'll let you know when the next full Railroad Island Task Force meeting is. And from there we can talk about committees and all that stuff, and what people have. Well, there's one sheet that says Housing Preservation Committee, and maybe that's not the right name, but landlord. So I would do this one, but like I said, these are all in flux. These are not set in stone. These are just a way to start the conversation. So I guess I'll just pass them all around. Just put your name on one of them.
yeah, and please add, if you have an email, please add your email address. And if you don't, that's fine. Put your phone number on there. If you don't have a phone number or an email, we'll come to your door. But please put something on there. In the meantime, I want to remind you what I said earlier about my commitment to Railroad Island. And I'm going to grab a Sharpie marker and sign this. And I invite you all, as you're signing this is your commitment. And if you don't want to be actually on a committee, but you have ideas, that's great. I said really what my commitment was, but I want to ask the city staff and the county staff and the organizations that are committed to this community to be responsive to residents and identify and share opportunities and to participate in this ongoing conversation. And I want to ask residents to commit to reporting issues to the city, both to our Department of Safety Inspections and to our police department. Do it by the book, even though we like calling Chris on his cell phone. And to our office, we'd love to hear it too. Share your ideas, be a good neighbor. I know Ed talked about that and got a little bit of a chuckle, but sometimes tall grass and weeds is a signal that someone's having trouble. And so, hey, just reaching out a hand and saying, do you need help? Do you need to borrow a mower? Could be a different solution than calling in a DSI. You know when the hair stands up on the back of your neck when that's not a good idea. So, but be a good neighbor and participate in this ongoing conversation and in these community groups. So I'm going to find that marker and I'm going to sign this, and I encourage you to sign that sheet and do this. And Shirley has something to say. Great. Let's get more people on it.
Put your name on it, and then get more people.
Good. grab a Sharpie marker. I'd like you to not leave until you do. I'll block the door.
I already signed. Oh, that just did. Yeah. What am I doing there?
You're just
Signed by my house.
you're putting it right here.